Hello, all theater lovers, both out and proud and on the DL, and welcome to Broadway Breakdown, a podcast discussing the history and legacy of American theater's most exclusive address, Broadway. This is the first of many series devoted to specific artists that have helped shape Broadway as we know it today, both for better and for worse. It is called A Little Sondheim Music, and it is dedicated to the musicals of one Mr. Stephen Sondheim. I am your host, Matt Koplik, the least famous and most opinionated of all the Broadway podcast hosts. With me today is what we like to call an anomaly on this podcast. This is someone who is not in the Broadway world. He's not really of the musical theater world, but he is a good friend of mine, and he knows music. Like this kid knows his shit. And on top of all that, he's just really sweet, and he's got an accent to die for. Very, very, he just rolled his eyes at me, but it's true. It's very sophisticated, very Mr. Darcy. Every time he speaks, I feel like I'm on the BBC, and I just want to hold him forever. But unfortunately, he's on the other side of the country because he hates me. Please welcome my good friend, Mr. Nur Pratama.
Hello, Matt. How are you
Hello,
doing?
Nur. I'm well, thank you.
Yeah, it's I'm based in LA. It's quite warm today. I think it's like 71 compared to New York, which is quite cold, I heard. So
very cold and windy.
And windy. Okay, yeah. I think it's been windy too, but definitely we have a much.
You don't know wind,
okay,
bitch,
fine.
unless it's 35 degrees and you're walking up Park Avenue and that wind blasts you in the face because it hates you, just bitch slapping you. So, Nur, just so the people out there understand what I mean when I say you know your shit, what are your musical credentials? Where have you studied music and for what exactly?
Okay, so so I was I'm a classical composer. I was studying composition at the Juilliard School in New York City, and it was when I was in New York City studying there when I met Matt. We were at the New York City Game and Scores together, and
ever since.
Yeah, and since then I continued on to Berklee College of Music in Boston, studying composition for film and TV. That's been really fun. Unfortunately, everything's been remote because of the pandemic, so I'm studying all the way from LA. But I mean, ultimately, LA is where I want to be for this profession because film and TV, it all happens in Los Angeles. So
it's very true.
Yeah, exactly.
You did one composition that I really liked. What was the string quartet where the one with the cello was slapping? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
That was a cello solo piece. So that was a cello piece.
I thought, why did I think it was a string? No, sorry. You did one that was a string quartet, or maybe it was a trio.
That was a string quartet, yes, but it didn't have the extended techniques such as the slapping.
The cello slapping was a separate thing.
That was correct. But also, just a bit of my background as well. I grew up in Indonesia, and so I learned Indonesian traditional music. I grew up in Java, and just this piece that Matt brought up is very inspired by Indonesian music, and that's why the extended techniques I thought were very appropriate with the piece.
Yes. I have many memories with Nur on the train. Sorry, guys, I'm eating as we discuss this. Nora understood. We discussed this before we started the recording. I basically came straight from work and then didn't have enough time to eat my lunch. So I'm being very rude and I'm eating while I talk to Nora about this musical. For the rest of you out there, you can just think of this as ASMR. But yes, Nora, when I met him, was a Broadway novice. He knew a couple of things, but he wasn't super knowledgeable. And he very innocently asked, "Oh, do you think you can help expose me to some more musical theater?" And if this were a sitcom, that would have been where I turned to the camera and like gave a side eye and the audience would go, ha, 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 ha. Because Lord did I. And we would ride the train because we both lived uptown at the time, and we would ride the train back from rehearsals, and Nor would whip out his iPad and start showing me film scores while we would listen to it, and he would like have me follow along with it and like dissect like certain moments, which is why I knew you'd be so right for this.
Just being such a music geek right there. So my apologies on that. No, you probably wanted a quiet ride on the train.
No, I super loved it because the way you are about film scoring is the way I sort of am about musical theater in a lot of ways. And I'm really looking forward to this combination. Nor, what is the Sondheim musical we are discussing today?
So today we're going to be discussing Passion
Mm,
by Stephen Sondheim. It's a very lush, very romantic musical that was written by Stephen Sondheim
James
uh,
Lapine.
and James Pine. That's correct. Yeah.
Lapine did
I
not
was actually.
contribute to the score. He just did the book and direction. But we'll
Well,
be
that's right.
discussing
Yeah.
all of it.
Yeah, and it is very beautiful. Again, it's very romantic. The orchestration, actually, when I first heard it, reminds me of an opera written by Richard Strauss called Salome, and especially
Hmm.
the storyline also was very reminiscent of that. I mean, Salome was this sort of troubled female character in the story in this on opera, and that really reminds me of the storyline that happens in Passion. So that was, and the music also is very similar. Has a lot of that romantic, big orchestration, at least from the recordings that I listened to. And yeah, so I quite enjoyed it very much.
I'm glad to hear it. So you had absolutely no experience or history with Passion before I reached out to you about doing this episode, yes?
That is correct.
You knew of Sondheim. What was the Sondheim that you did
Yes.
know? Was there any you knew?
Yeah, so I mean, again, mentioning earlier where I grew up in Indonesia, unfortunately, musical theater was just not as popular in that country. So my exposure to musical theater in general, and especially Sondheim, was just not enough, I felt
Mm.
like. And so I came to the United States in 2012 the first time, and that was the first time I sort of heard the name Stephen Sondheim and the works that he's done in the past. I mean, I think the very first one was Into the Woods. It's a very classic Sondheim musical. Really great. It was really fun. And then I started learning more about company. I think there was one recital that I saw that had a song from road shows that was really fun.
Oh,
Yeah, I was also in a I was in the Los Angeles Gay Men's Chorus before moving to New York, and we did numbers from Sunday in the Park with George, as well as your company. Yeah, I think we did Ladies Who Lunch, something like that. So it was really fun.
right. And we were rehearsing Ladies Who Lunch before the pandemic, so you knew a
Oh,
little bit
that's
of that.
right.
Wait, so do you not really know any Sweeney Todd?
Oh, Sweet Todd, yes,
Okay. I was
I've
about to say
heard it
that's like that
before.
is in your wheelhouse. So I was like, of all the shows to not know.
I just it just come to my mind. But again,
Okay.
something about me, especially if I wanted to get into, if I want to familiar myself with a story, as I want trying to get as close as much experience as I can. And unfortunately, with again, I lived in New York only briefly. It was not for very long because I transferred to Juilliard instead of just attending 4 years there. So I lived somewhere where we didn't have as much exposure to theater, unfortunately. But anyway, yes, Todd, I know a few numbers from that musical, not as much, and I'm still waiting for that one moment. It's like, okay, I'm gonna watch maybe the recording of it or the
Mm,
movie, and
mm,
actually, like, for some reason, I just feel like I'm not quite there yet.
mm.
It's either I don't have the time or,
And I'm not on the coast with you to bust your ass to sit down
that
and
is
watch it.
that is very true. But I was also going to say what Matt has been so great is in all the knowledge of musical theater that you've been giving me. I mean, I think the audience needs to know that you left me with a Spotify playlist with with all these songs that I've enjoyed and loved since you, yeah, blessed me with this. So yeah, so it's been really fun, and I think that I learned a lot from you from the musical theater world. So
Guys, isn't he a mensch? Don't you just love this boy? Um, so let's get into it. Because we have complimented each other long enough, and we need to get into the nitty gritty of this damn musical. So first of all, my experience with Passion is a little different from Nora's, but not that much different. I was not super familiar with it for a very long time. Passion has this sort of reputation in the musical theater community. Nora is like, it's still today probably the most divisive of Sondheim's shows. Like even devoted Sondheim fans are very much split on liking it or not liking it. And we'll get into why later on. And so because of that, I'd always been sort of put off by it. I always thought, oh, it's this somber show. I don't think I'm going to find it very interesting. The music that I had heard sounded very off-putting. Sort of, Sondheim has this reputation that I think is very unfair of he writes unmelodic music and his shows are cold and they're distancing and whatnot. And anytime I would think of Passion based off of like the little bit that I did know of it, I was like, that's kind of the show that people think of when they think of like, oh, Sondheim and his weird music. But so because of that, I put it off for a long time. I knew one song, which is Loving You, which is sort of one of two big songs from this show. And then I just always sort of put off the show, put it off. And then I finally watched the recording of the original Broadway production 10 years ago when I was in college.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't love it at the time. And in sort of preparing for this episode, I still don't really love the recording. I have come to like the show a lot more actually in the last 2 days preparing for it, more than I have ever since I started listening to it 10 years ago. But I think what I realized is that there are other recordings and other interpretations of the musical that I like more than the original. Particularly Giorgio's that I like way more than the original Giorgio, who we'll get into it. So that's my history with it. And as I said, I kind of had a major warming to this show about 2 days ago because I was ready to come into this recording being like, all right, let's talk about this little ditty. And now I'm like, and there are still things about it that kind of turn me off and things that I don't think always work about it. But I gotta say the finale to this thing hits me right in the ovaries. I was listening to this last night before I went to bed and the finale came on and I just started getting teary. And that doesn't happen very often. Oh God, especially the I see now I was blind. That just fucking wrecks me. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it more. So for anyone who doesn't know, do you think you can give us a brief summary on what Passion is about?
Me? Okay, yeah. So basically it's sort of this love story by this what's an army captain or something like that. His name is Giorgio.
Giorgio, yes, an Italian. He may not be a captain. I think he's an officer. I think
I think he was a captain actually. I mean, I remember him being referred as.
Yeah, maybe he is a captain.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the busyness of the
apologies.
army in this show. Let's get to the sex. This show has sex in it.
That is very true. But anyway, so this the show sort of opened with this military man sort of having a love scene with this female character named Clara, and then he had to be posted somewhere rural in Italy. I think it was in the 18th and 19th century.
Yeah, it's the late 19th century, I believe.
Yeah, that is right. And while he was being stationed in this remote location, he had the opportunity to meet this another female character named Fosca. And apparently she was just portrayed as being very troubled and very I think it was epileptic too. I think in the story
and physically unappealing
that is very true. Yeah,
it's very important to the show that Fosca not be even plain, like unassuming. She has to like be a little grotesque.
Right. That is very true. And then the source started there with Georgia sort of going back and forth, and then there's some conflict with Clara, the first lady. Apparently, we found out that
girlfriend's married.
Say it. Yep.
Yeah, say it.
Exactly. With a child, with a kid.
She's married with a goddamn kid.
Exactly.
Yes, and she won't leave. She's willing to leave her husband, but not leave her child for Giorgio, at least at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major turning point in the show, which is, he's in love with Clara, he keeps writing letters to her and whatnot, and he sneaks away from his platoon to go off and and fuck her essentially.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Fosca's like pining after Giorgio and just doing really toxic behavior, like really over dramatic,
Yeah.
like borderline gross behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yes, she declares her love for him and basically says, "You can learn to love me. Why I deserve love? Why don't you love me?" And over the course of the show, Giorgio slowly comes to love Fosca and move away from Clara. And there are other complications that happen. There's a letter that happens. The letter gets discovered. There's a duel. No one dies from the duel, but Fosca does die
Correct.
because she's overwhelmed with the tension of everything that's happening around her. Plus, when she and Giorgio declare their love, they have sex, which she's too frail for. And Giorgio basically kills Fosca. That's, we're not,
Yeah.
we're not saying spoiler alert. This show is 27 years old.
Right.
But yeah, and the show ends with sort of his reading a letter that she had written to him right before she died, and that's sort of how the show ends. It's very quiet.
Yeah.
It's a very quiet ending.
Yeah, it's definitely very emotionally just very evoking, and I thought that was there's something very pure and innocent about the love story in this play, I feel like. And it's very, again, just coming from the musical world, it's just very reflected in the music that Sondheim wrote. I think you mentioned the song Loving You earlier. That was definitely one of the songs that really resonates. And the orchestration just really what's the name? Jonathan Tunick, I think, was the one who orchestrated the play. And I mean, just looking at the other stuff that he's done, absolutely a fantastic orchestrator. And this, it just proves, how amazing he was at the job. So
yes, I knew that you would really appreciate Jonathan Tunick's work on this.
oh yeah.
Yes. We'll get into this with your rapid fire questions as well. So I'm going to do a little bit of history about how Passion came to be, how we came to have it in our midst, and then we'll talk about the show and the score and all that good stuff. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Great. You feel free to interject at any moment if you have questions or anything that interests you, just to keep this from being a monologue. Although I do love to monologue, as you know.
You like being in the spotlight, so I get that. I got that from a long time ago. It's no longer news. It's no longer new to me. So
wow, how quickly things turn. 10 minutes ago, this boy was complimenting me up the wazoo, and now he's reading me for filth. Love it so much. Okay, so we're in the 90s, and Sondheim has just come off of Assassins, which opens at Playwrights Horizons and doesn't transfer to Broadway like they had hoped. Then it goes off to have a production at the Donmar Warehouse in London. So Sondheim is kind of in this middle area. He's won an Oscar for Dick Tracy for Best Song, Sooner or Later. It's a bop. Look into it if you don't know it. And he also has the financial success of Into the Woods and the critical success of Sunday in the Park. Plus, major productions of Sweeney Todd are now happening all over the place. There's one at the National that's happening around 93. And he and James Lapine are sort of looking for their next show to work on. And Sondheim comes back to an idea he had in the 80s when he saw this Italian film called Passion d'Amore, which is itself based off of a 19th century novel called Fosca. And it's, the plot that we had discussed. And I have not seen the movie, nor have I read the novel, or novella it might be. But I've read up on the book and I've watched some clips of the movie, and it's, from what I can understand, the show is pretty faithful, at least in terms of plot, if not necessarily always in theme, but we'll get to that. So Sondheim sort of had an idea to turn that movie into a musical a while ago because he really liked the idea of seeing this woman who is not very appealing, at least physically. Well, no, and attitude. She's not a very pleasant human being. Like the story very much challenges you because with stories like this where it's like, oh, she isn't what society would normally deem a conventionally attractive woman, but she's so smart and kind and amazing. And Passion, it's like, no, she's also kind of awful and toxic. It's just about, other things. Anyway.
Right.
So he always liked the idea of this woman who's so unappealing in so many ways, kind of how this man who is like classic leading man status over the course of the movie falls in love with her. And he thought that would make a really interesting musical, but he sort of shelved it during the 80s because he works on Sunday in the Park with George instead. And then Into the Woods happens, then Assassins. But Assassins is over, and he and James Lapine are talking about what their next project should be. And he comes back to Passion as an idea, but James Lapine has an idea for a different musical. He wants to adapt a memoir called Muscle. It's literally just, are you aware of it? Nur just nodded his head like, oh yeah, I love that book.
I read it a bit. Yeah. It's apparently this Muscle. It's like, what the hell is that?
The fuck is Muscle? It's it's a memoir about this guy. The whole gist is essentially that he's this scrawny academic type who's sort of afraid of everything, moves to New York City, afraid of everything. And he walks into a bookstore because he's afraid he's going to get mugged, and comes across a book on Arnold Schwarzenegger and gets inspired to become a bodybuilder. And that sort of becomes his whole life. And then he it becomes an obsession and enters a bodybuilding tournament only to come in second, and then he has this mental breakdown afterwards. So of course James Lapine's obviously that's a musical. So at first they kind of thought that both Passion and Muscle were not really big enough stories to justify a 2-act musical, so they thought maybe we'll make these 2 1-acts and sort of make it a double bill feature.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, and they start working on Muscle first. And immediately Sondheim's sort of uncomfortable with the material. He doesn't really think that he has a way into it. It's a more modern New York that he's used to writing to, and all this other stuff. So they do a reading of it, held at Lincoln Center, and it's the lead was played by my boy, Michael Hayden of Carousel. And they watch the reading, and they're basically like, this isn't working. And they're like, well, why don't we go back to Passion then? And Sondheim's like, this is what I really want to write. So can we start working on this? And what they realize is there's not enough material for it to be a 2-act musical, but there's enough material for it to be a 100-minute intermissionless musical, which doesn't happen very often on Broadway.
That is true.
It happens. It's not rare, but it's not often. So they start working on it. And at this point in Sondheim's life, he's in his first real romantic relationship. So he's kind of feeling the love at the moment. That does not end super well because the dude leaves him. But there are 2 sides to every story. If you read the Sondheim bio, the guy had his reasons. Sondheim's not the easiest person to love. So while Sondheim goes through this love and this heartbreak is while he's writing Passion. That definitely informs the show a lot. They hold a 4-week workshop at Lincoln Center in 1993 where they hold 3 industry performances with a cast that almost completely is going to be the Broadway cast, save 1 or 2 actors. And they are offered Lincoln Center's off-Broadway theater for nonprofit. And they're also offered a Broadway house by the Schubert Organization. And there was sort of a inner conflict because on the one hand, Passion is a show that would work really well for a subscriber-based nonprofit, artistic theater space. However, Sondheim really is a Broadway guy and wanted the show to be seen by as many people as possible. And because he kind of got burned with Assassins not coming to Broadway, he's like, I don't want to take the risk of this opening off Broadway and never transferring. Let's just open it on Broadway. And they don't do an out-of-town tryout. They just do a long preview process during that season. And previews don't really go super well, Nor. I don't know how much you read about it, but these previews are kind of infamous in the Broadway community. Do you know why?
I did not know.
Lots of inappropriate laughter.
Oh, that is right. Yeah, I was reading something about that. Yeah, apparently he was... there's some laughter that was unexpected, that was unplanned in the play, and he was like, let's tone this down or something like that. Yeah,
he says that they were very much taken aback by the initial audience response because not only were people laughing, people were very hostile towards Fosca, and were like, when she would collapse, they would be like, just die, Fosca. And there's one scene where she collapses and Giorgio almost leaves her to lie there. But he comes back together. But while he's starting to walk away, the audience started to cheer. And Sondheim and James Lapine were like, oh, Jesus, we gotta. And a lot of lines would get inappropriate laughter. So basically, throughout all of previews, they had to finesse the dialogue so it seemed less modern and could seem more stylized. Um, and then they would trim some stuff and they would tone some of the acting down a bit. And they added "Loving You," I believe, in previews, which was
Oh,
a major game changer for the show because it allowed the audience a more uh, what's what I'm looking for? I don't want to use the word likable, but I can't think of anything else. But a more likable insight into
yeah, yeah.
Fosca's mentality. Because until then, every time we sort of hear her speak her mind, we're like, Jesus, this woman is so unpleasant. Uh,
Yeah, I think it
yeah,
really gives. I was going to say, especially about that song, is just it. I was reading something about Fosca just being very hard to identify with, with the
yeah,
audience, and the fact that especially in Loving You, and how she was just being so honest, and I think I mentioned this word earlier, innocent, about her feelings. It gives a familiar feeling to the audience that, like, of course, like, everyone has been in love, and I think a lot of us have had loves that are unreturned, loves who do we don't get back,
yeah.
and either we get hurt from it and we learn from it. And I think that is very relatable with the audience, and I think that's what probably, yeah, the fact that they added that was definitely a good choice, and beautiful music, just in general as well. So
Beautiful gowns, beautiful gowns. Um, they do alter a lot in previews. There was a lot of shock because the show does open with two naked people in a bed, and the
mhm.
video that I sent you, which was the recording of the original Broadway company, they actually toned down the nudity. You don't see really anything; it's all implied.
Oh,
Apparently, when it was originally on stage, you saw everything,
wow.
and there's a reason for it, and we'll get into that in a bit. But they definitely sort of they had their work cut out for them during previews and
Yeah.
worked hard on it. They trimmed it. They added "Loving You," all this good stuff. And the show opened. They had to delay previews by 2 weeks. Sorry, they had to delay opening night by 2 weeks. And it finally does open on May 9th, 1994, at the end of the 1993-1994 Broadway season. What its reception was and what happened after that, we will get to once we finish discussing the show. So, now that we've gotten here, let's discuss passion.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, as I mentioned just now, the show do open with two naked bodies. It opens with Giorgio and Clara finishing having sex. And in
Mhm.
fact, when the show starts, it has, the drum revelry. Is that
Right.
what we call it? Yeah.
Yeah, the bugle corps or something like that. Yeah, with the
Yes.
drums and yeah.
And then
Awesome.
the full orchestra comes in on a very harsh note, which is meant to represent Clara's orgasm.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Sondheim wanted to,
Interesting.
yeah, Sondheim basically, he wanted to bookend the show with two separate orgasms from different characters. And basically one is Clara's, one is Fosca's,
Mhm.
which, means Giorgio knows what he's doing. So yeah, the opening song is called Happiness, and it's the two of them in bed. And the reason why they're sort of so exposed, physically speaking, is because this whole show is sort of about exposing yourself, but in different ways and what's more meaningful. And on top of this, it's Giorgio and Clara talking about how much they love each other, and they sing, "I thought I knew what love was, but I know that all that love is just happiness, because this is happiness, pure happiness." And them being naked is very important to, in addition to the fact that they have to sort of be prototypes of what our society has always thought of as attractive, chiseled
Right.
features, porcelain skin, because these are two people who are kind of in love with each other's physical attributes, and it's all about how they're sort of enveloping each other's bodies and just sort
Mhm.
of worshiping each other as, like, even whether they're aware of it or not, subconsciously they're just like, oh, aren't we so hot together?
Right.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's very much the song.
So much happiness.
You are so beautiful,
Happening by chance in a
not
pond.
by chance, by
Surely
necessity,
this is happiness.
by the sadness that we saw in each
No
other.
one else has ever felt before.
Just another love story, that's what they would play. Another simple love story, aren't all of them the same?
So something that Sondheim likes to talk about with duets and trios and group numbers is that he really dislikes when people are all singing in unison, because half the time he doesn't think it's justified. He's like, no one, he's like, you can't ever get like 9 people together in real life and they're all thinking the exact same thing at the exact same time. It just doesn't happen. So if he does have unison, he tries to justify it. So, there's usually overlap of some sort, and then usually something happens in unison, which is what happens with Happiness, right? Giorgio and Clara, it's, this musical dialogue that they're having. But then when they get to the Happiness, it's tied to later on in the show, and Giorgio is talking about to Fosca about how, like, to be in love is to sort of have your body and your mind in sync with another person, that you're, everything is synchronized with them. And which, of course, Fosca hears that and she's like, the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
But you see that with Happiness where, the love that these two have for each other is real. It's not, I don't think it's as deep as they think it is. And of course, Giorgio will come to realize that later on. But you sort of understand that with the fact that they do sing in unison so much in this number, that it's like they think it's how people today are like, I want someone, who likes these things and does these things, same thing as me. And it's very narcissistic. It's like you basically want a life partner who's just like you.
Exactly. Yeah. And I completely agree with that. I mean, I just had this conversation with some friends just very recently about, with all the technologies that we have today, Instagram or Facebook or something like that, and also dating apps and stuff like that, we try to sort of, some people are very attracted to somebody that basically look like them, especially us being gay men, that I feel like happens just at a more a higher level, that we wish to find somebody who is not necessarily exactly the same like us, but basically like a more perfect version of us. And I think that's just sort of what it's implied in this first scene as well. So
yeah, not you, of course, though, right? Nor like you, you look for the exact opposite of you.
Sometimes, I don't know, opposites attract, right? But
well, it's that weird back and forth of love yourself and be confident in who you are, but also like maybe don't date the mirror version of you. Like,
of course,
be with someone who compliments you, because it's because it can go into sort of narcissism in a weird way, which is, again, I think what this song is trying to sort of show is a weird kind of narcissism with these two. And because the two aren't aware that it's narcissism, it's not super obvious. You only kind of realize it as you continue with the show, and then you come back to Happiness and you're like, oh, and this song is repeated throughout the show. But because I am a basic bitch, this is one of the songs in the show that I like a great deal.
Okay.
Yeah, and not because it's naked bodies. She's not that girl. No, I just think the music's pretty. The thing about this show, it's hard to pick it apart musically speaking, because there are very few songs, like standalone songs. It's all more sort of, pieces sort of scattered throughout. We have the letters, we have moments of recitative that go back into dialogue. There are very few moments where it's like, this is a standalone moment of music. And so we'll go all over the place. I don't want to go sort of like beat by beat with this show, even though this is one of the more plot driven shows in the Sondheim canon. But I don't feel the need to sort of make our way through the show. We'll sort of go all over the place. What is your favorite song in this show? Would it be Loving You?
So I'm Loving You. You mentioned that was definitely really beautiful. There was one that was it's a little quirky, but I Read, I think that was the title.
Yeah, Fosca's intro song.
Yeah, that was the idea of escapism with that song. I thought was just very interesting, especially since I feel like that's very relatable with what we do, in the modern world, with our phones and the internet. And I mean, the fact that she admits that very openly, and even, and people see her being very troubled and, just, having issues and everything, but yet she was being open about, I'm escaping this by reading a book. And I think that is a lot more than people today are willing to admit. I mean, we dive ourselves into movies and shows and music, and a lot of it is escapism. So I think in terms of the song that definitely resonates with me personally is that I do that with myself. Sometimes I would just tune everything out in my surroundings, just like really internalize myself with a story and thinking about like if I was in there. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite numbers from it just reminds me, when I was living in New York City, I used to go to the Met, the Metropolitan Museum, and I would actually listen to music that was related to what I'm seeing. So let's say I'm in the 18th century exhibit for sculptures or paintings. I was like, okay, what are my 18th century music playlist here, and what can I listen to really dive myself into? I'm sorry, this is a very geeky
No,
thing,
I'm obsessed with you. I'm absolutely obsessed with you. Keep going, keep going.
But yeah, so there's an element of escapism, and I think it's just very interesting because there's so much distractions in our world today with so many things, and the idea of escapism, I think it's a double-edged sword. And in this case, in Passion, the fact that she was being open about it, and she knows that her actual life was not that great with all the problems that she had, and how she got to that situation, with the Austria, yeah, exactly. And so exactly, so the fact that she was open about, and especially again, this story takes place in late 19th century, so that is, I mean, just applying it to that time period is just very eye-opening.
Yeah. For all the unpleasantness that I sort of drag Fosca for being, it's important to remember she is a very intelligent woman, and she's a very brutally honest woman. She's probably the smartest person in the show, and she's the only person who's willing to kind of call it like she sees it. And that's something that I also really like about I Read. She is very self-pitying in a way that makes sense. She is a sickly woman with a lot of troubles, and is underestimated by everyone around her, not just because she's a woman in 1800s Italy, but also because she's, by all their accounts, an unattractive woman, and therefore like the one value that they think women have, she doesn't even have. But we realize she's intelligent and that she's talented and she's skilled. She plays the piano, she reads numerous books, she's highly articulate, and very intelligent and creative, which, she uses those means sometimes to manipulate and gaslight, but who hasn't done that? Like we've all been there.
Yeah. And speaking about that song again too, is that I actually like copied and pasted the section from that song that I really like. It says, "I do not read to think, I do not read to learn. I know the truth is hardly what I need, but I read to dream." And it's interesting. I mean, thinking about it too, learning somebody else's story by being in that person's shoes is a lot stronger experience than just reading about it and it's like, oh yeah, okay, this person experienced this. And I think what she was trying to do is, like, she did say, "I do not read to think, I do not read to learn." I think she still learned something from being immersed in these stories. It's just that she was putting herself in somebody else's shoes. She was giving herself a chance to be something else and experience it. And you have a lot stronger sort of moment when you do that. So
yeah. Well, so when she says, "I do not read to think," or rather I should say, when she sings, "I don't read to think," it is in response to Giorgio. It's the first time that they're meeting, technically speaking, because he has heard of her. She's the cousin of his boss, essentially, in this new regiment that he's now at, and they're staying in this man's home, and therefore Fosca lives there as well, and they're cousins, and they're the only family they still have, and she basically stays in her room all day long because she's so sick and she never has an appetite, and most of the other officers find her unpleasant. And Giorgio has now heard of her a bunch, and he finally meets her, and they're alone at the table. He's brought her a bunch, or rather, I should say, he's lent her a bunch of books that he has for her to read because he's been told she likes to read. And she says, "Thank you for the books. And I found one of them really interesting. And this one character was a big mystery." And he goes, "Well, you should have kept the book longer to meditate over it." And then she whips her head around and she's like, "I do not read to think."
Yeah.
And goes into this 4-minute, like, pissing all over the floor.
Yeah.
I am telling you who I am and what I'm about and what life is for me in 4 minutes, and I am leaving it all out on the floor. And you learn everything you need to know about this character in these 4 minutes and what she's capable of, because she goes from 0 to 100 in about 30 seconds.
There is a flower which offers nectar at the top, delicious nectar at the top, and bitter poison underneath. The butterfly that stays too long and drinks too deep is doomed to die. I read to fly, to skim.
There's also a moment in the song that is important musically speaking, because it's what I call Fosca's trauma melody, which is something that Sondheim had sort of worked with already in Sweeney Todd, and I'll make the connection in a second. It's in I Read, and she sings it. It's the line in I Read, it's more of a variant of the melody, but it's there, which is that there is a flower with nectar at the top, delicious nectar at the top. And it's a variant on a melody that she sings another time, which is when she's in the garden and she goes, "I saw you from my window. I noticed you the day that you arrived." And you learn it's the same melody that the Austrian count sang when he seduced her in her youth.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I call it the Fosca trauma melody line, and it's something that Sondheim's really good at, about having moments of your life that were awful for you stay with you in, like, not super obvious ways, just like little pieces. So like Fosca's trauma doesn't totally define her now, but it has permanently affected her. And you hear it with that melody line, and when you hear the count sing it for the first time, you're like, oh, that's where she gets it from.
That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, that reminds me, especially for those who are familiar with film or TV scores, that is done quite a lot in film and TV music, is you sort of apply what's called a theme sort of thing to a particular person or a place. But it's definitely very possible, and this proves how effective it can be to also assign a theme to an experience, and so when there's even a hint of that experience coming back, even if it's just a little inside of it, then the composer can sort of bring that theme back again. So for very mainstream film scores is, from the Star Wars films, when the Darth Vader, when he was still very little and stuff, there was, you can hear a little bit of the Darth Vader theme when he was still little. So the audience didn't really quite know that he's going to become Darth Vader. We're still sort of in the story, but there's a hint that, like, one day he'll become that, and so it's not necessarily, I mean, in this case, it is a theme from Darth Vader, but it is also the experience. And I think with this, what you brought up, that was definitely a very good point, is that there's a theme to that experience with the count, and we'll get into that, how the story happens between Fosca and the count, but also, and how that affects her in the present, quote unquote, with Giorgio.
So this is why I'm happy you're my guest, because you are studying for film composition, and you are sort of in that world, and you study the films and you study these composers. Sondheim is a huge movie buff, and in fact, he kind of writes with movies in his head. He often says a lot of problems that directors have had with him in the past is, like, he'll write a song that is very visual in his head as a movie, not a scene from a stage show.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, and he loves Bernard Herrmann a lot, and who is, who he kind of references with the Sweeney Todd score. He loves movies. He loves movies, and he loves movie scores. And so with your knowledge of that, you're actually more qualified than most people to talk about Sondheim because you two are connected that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I think a good composer, or if somebody wants to compose for any purpose, for if it's, film or TV or concert or something like that, I think it is important to have the imagination, sort of the storytelling, and whether that takes place, as melodic lines or rhythmic, or an actual scene like Sondheim, you just brought up. I think it is very important. And yeah, Bernard Herrmann's fantastic composer. I mean, all the stuff he's done with Psycho, again, you hear that the theme, and then the I can't remember what the name of that specific theme from that movie, but it is very iconic, and that really brings you back to the experience. It was the lady in Psycho who ended up being the one who was murdered. I'm sorry, it's going
Janet Leigh's the actress. I can't remember the name of the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
but
the shower.
There's
Ring.
well, not that when she was on her way to Bates Motel. There's the music with the very heavy strings and stuff like that. She was driving. Yeah, and that's that's definitely just a very iconic. But again, I'm back to what you're talking about is that the theme can be not just places or people, it can also be experiences. And I think that's what's so powerful with this. And Sondheim used it very brilliantly. So
very much so. Since we kind of have been referencing it, let's talk about it. What is called the flashback sequence, where we learn about Fosca's trauma.
Yeah.
What led her here. So in this, we find out that when Fosca was young, she had parents who doted on her and said she was beautiful. And it's told from Fosca's perspective while she's writing a letter to Giorgio, as well as Fosca's cousin who's telling Giorgio in the present. So we hear it from both of their perspectives and what they sort of both take away from it. And what happened was, as Fosca got older and her cousin was living with her and her parents, this young man found his way to them who claimed to be an Austrian count and was very handsome, and essentially seduces Fosca, says to her, I am in love with you, you're beautiful, I want to marry you. And her parents are ecstatic, and they give him her dowry, and they get married. And as soon as they go off, he starts leaving her alone for long periods of time, spends all the money. She has to go back to her parents to get more money, and drains their savings in over time. And then she finds out, she's in the market one day and some woman comes up to her and she's like, the dude you married isn't even a count. He actually has his own wife and kids somewhere else. And like when he says that he's leaving on business from you, he's actually going off to screw me. And he's left me and he's probably off to like have sex with somebody else now. So you're an idiot. And when she goes to confront him about it, he's like, yeah, pretty much. That's exactly what happened. I took your parents' money and I go have sex with other women. But what he says is interesting because there's a truth to it when he's like, let's be real here. I married you because you had money and you married me because I'm handsome. It's like women use their beauty all the time during this era to get, a specific good match from a man. Why shouldn't a man do the same thing? A man with no prospects, why shouldn't I do the same thing? Now, let's be very clear. I'm not condoning this man's actions. This man is a monster. However, he's very right that all Fosca really knew about him was that he was handsome. She didn't know anything else about him, really. She didn't have an inkling of who he truly was or like know anyone else from his life. So just sort of took him at his word because he was so handsome. And that's something that I think is interesting as we talk about her infatuation with Giorgio at a later point. But with that trauma, she comes back to her parents. They are now broke. She's sick. They die taking care of her. And the cousin is racked with guilt because he thinks that it's all his fault. He brought the man into their lives. Mm-hmm. And they were just so thrilled that a man would want her. So they just sort of let her go off with him. And then everything was sort of ruined, which is why this cousin now is so tied to Fosca and why Fosca is so fragile, both emotionally and physically. Yeah. Talk to me about this flashback sequence, because this is like kind of its own operatic sequence, I would say.
I mean, I couldn't help thinking about how similar this situation is with Giorgio and Clara, because Clara is married with a spouse and a kid. So I think it's interesting, and I was wondering if the in the original story, Passione d'amore, I wonder if that was sort of intentional or something like that. And you're right about the fact that Ludovic, I think is the name of the count, right? Yeah, Ludovic was, he was very handsome and everything, and that was just sort of like, yeah, I used you for this. I think we got to remind ourselves that the story takes place in Italy, so that is very Catholic and very traditional, very religious in a way, as well as with Fosca being a woman and being pressured into that situation, I thought was was definitely, of course, I felt like she had her reservations with being taken away by Ludovic, by the Count.
She even says in the letter when he's courting her that she had her suspicions at the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
she suppressed them.
Yeah, and I think that's what's this story really well sort of portrays, with her being a female, and again, I don't know if it was intentional, but with the breakdown that she was having, versus Giorgio was also having the same experience. Clara was married with a child, and
however, he's aware that she's married with a child. I don't know. We don't know necessarily the development of that information.
That is very true. Yeah.
But it seems that when they got together, she was pretty upfront of like, hey, I'm married with a kid. Like, we can't really meet at night. We can only meet during the day. That's when my husband's away and my kid's in school. And yeah, it's a little different, but there are parallels for sure. You're right about that.
I've seen you at your window.
Won't you stay for dinner?
You do, yes.
Count?
I've watched you every day since I arrived.
I had my suspicions.
I had no suspicion.
I chose not to see.
The way you move, the way you gaze at the sky.
For love had made me blind.
How could I be so blind?
Or what I took for love.
Within a month, he had asked for her hand.
Signora Fosca has been married.
Yes.
Passion isn't an opera, but it is operatic.
Right.
It's very melodramatic. It's very high emotions, and it's a lot of music that doesn't necessarily it's music that can't necessarily be confined to a moment. It all feels very fluid. And when I was reading Finishing the Hat, or actually it was Look, I Made a Hat with this one, Sondheim talked about how a lot of the lyrics in the show don't rhyme. They only will sort of rhyme in very specific moments, one of which is actually my favorite song in the show, which is I Wish I Could Forget You, which is what's mostly referenced in the finale. And it's because it's a controlled and calculated moment. I Wish I Could Forget You happens where Fosca is rejected by Giorgio, like harshly for the first time. Not for the last time does he reject her pretty harshly, but it's the first time that he does it. And she takes a turn because there's a doctor who, is there, and his job is basically to care for Fosca. And he tells Giorgio in confidence, like, listen, it's very clear she's got the hots for you. And every time you reject her, she takes a turn for the worst and like doesn't have any interest in staying alive. So maybe like throw her a bone so my patient can, do better from time to time. And keeps on sort of manipulating Giorgio into spending time with her and being kind to her. And so when she takes this really harsh turn and is bedridden, he basically is like, go into her room and like sit with her for a little while because she could die if she starts giving up. So Giorgio does. And Fosca being Fosca, she's like, oh my God, I didn't think you were going to come. Sit on my bed. Put your feet on my bed. Lay your head against my head. Fall asleep with me. Write me a letter. Like it keeps going where she's keeps pushing her luck. And apparently that was one of those scenes in previews that like just always got laughs, and they didn't mean for it to get laughs, but I think you could make it slightly humorous. I think you need to indulge some of the humor and passion. Otherwise, it's just a little too much.
Yeah, it's definitely it can be very serious. And, I mean, just again, that feeling of having love that is unreturned can be a very familiar feeling for a lot of people. So you really got to be smart there in terms of like, let's not be too serious here, because this can be very depressing to some people.
And humor and it makes sense because humor is a sign of intelligence, really.
Yeah.
And Fosca is very intelligent and she makes a lot of wisecracks. And when Giorgio writes her the letter, so when the first time that Giorgio escapes to go off and have sex with Clara as much as he possibly can, he writes Fosca a letter that's basically like, stop being in love with me, I'm in love with somebody else. And when he comes back, they have this very tense moment. And she says, I'm so embarrassed. I'm ashamed of myself. I let my emotions get the better of me. And he goes, not at all. I found your attention very flattering. And then she looks at him. She goes, how indulgent you are with me. And it's really fucking funny. But a lot of actresses, and Donna Murphy doesn't really do it either. Donna Murphy kind of kills the laugh. She plays them much more serious. But there's a great video of Judy Kuhn doing it at at Kennedy Center. And I love Judy Kuhn. We all know I love Judy Kuhn, but she plays that line for laughs, and it's important. You need to give the audience a break every now and then.
Of course, yeah.
And it's a good release, and as I said, it shows intelligence. So it's nice to see Fosca crack a joke from time to time. But anyway, Giorgio meets her in her room, and I think you can definitely play that for laughs a little bit. Where she's like, "Thank you for coming. Sit on my bed." Just who hasn't been there, girl? And so the morning comes, and basically she's like, can you please write me a letter? I want, write me this letter and I'll leave you alone. I just need a love letter. I know it's fake and you'll know it's fake, but let me just tell you what I want you to write. And it's this letter that's basically says, I wish I could forget you. And it's also like, I cannot love you, but I wish I could love you. And it's her way of trying to make it sound believable, but also get what she wants out of it, because she can't have it be pure oh, I love you so much, I want to spend every day with you. It's this I wish I could love you, but I can't, and I want to love you, and all these things. And it's this gorgeous melody, and Sondheim talks about the reason why this is really the first song that has rhymes in it is because it's calculated and controlled.
I don't know how I let you so far inside my mind, but there you are, and there you will stay. How could I ever wish you away? I see now I was blind, and should you die tomorrow, another thing I see.
It sounds like longing. It sounds like unrequited love, which is what it really is. It's so something that I talk about with Sondheim a lot is that after West Side Story, he doesn't really write songs that are two characters saying, I love you and you love me, and isn't it fantastic? The best he can do is really in this show, which is you have Clara and Giorgio with happiness, but it's sort of, a commentary in a way of, this really pure but kind of shallow love, right? It's not as real as it should be. And then you have the kind of love that Fosca has for Giorgio, which starts unrequited. And then when Giorgio reciprocates, it's kind of muddy water, because it's unclear really if he truly now is in love with her, if he's just been worn down, or if he's in love with how much she loves him. Because the song he sings to her, first he sings to her earlier in the show, is this what you call love? This stalking, and it's not it's not because you're not attractive, it's because you're awful. It's
right.
He literally says that to her. You don't get to blame your really shitty attitude and actions on the fact that you're not what most men would consider beautiful. You are just not a good person.
Yeah.
And again, and the show really does lean into that when they're walking in the garden, and he's like, well, maybe you could find joy in other ways, like helping others. And she's like, helping others? Like, you would think she'd be like, oh, I help others all the time. I teach the children how to read. I go to the charity. She's like, I've done that. I hated it. It's awful. It's like Fosca, like
she's done what she needs to do. All the stuff, she's tried them all. So yeah,
she's that woman in 30 Rock that's like, charity work sucks. She's like, where he's like, oh, being in love, you're at one with the other person. She's like, the fuck are you talking about? And then Giorgio's like, oh, it really feels good to help others. And she's like, no, it doesn't. She's just like, we admire her because she is so unashamed about it all. And that is part of how she sort of, I don't want to say courts Giorgio. She doesn't fucking court him. She throws herself at him every chance she gets.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so unabashed. But like at the same time, there's something admirable about like saying the truths that no one else wants to say. She's like, it sucks to be sick. I don't have this like newfound appreciation for life or have any insight. I don't like helping others. I can barely get out of bed in the morning. Fuck you.
Yeah.
But so when Giorgio sings to her at the end of the show and he's like, I do love you. And she's like, why do you love me? And the song he sings is, no one has ever loved me like you have. And for my money, that's not really the best answer. Like, I love you because you've loved me more than anyone else ever has in a way that no one else ever has. It's like, how about I love you because of all the things you are? Like, it's a kind of declaration of love that in its way has its own sort of toxicity. And then the moment of the show that I think is pure, like unadulterated, I love you, is when they quote her letter, and I wish I could forget you, in the finale. But by that point, she's dead. And and he's like in an insane asylum. So it's not like this wonderful, oh, isn't love grand? Let people say we're in love. It's, I love you and your love will live with me even though you're dead now. Like, it's just very,
Yeah. Oh, I had a thought in my head. I can't remember what it was, but it's definitely, it reminds me of the conversation today when people are talking about, consent. And I feel like, like, is this really him feeling genuine affections or love towards Fosca, or is it just all the exhaustion, all the the whole thing that happens with Clara and the affair and stuff, and Clara basically, I think in some time in the story, Clara was talking about, I can't be with you, like, now I'm gonna have to wait until my son is older or something like that to leave my husband, and that is traumatic, and so yeah, there's definitely a question about consent here. Is like, are you really like into it? Like, did you sign up for this? And are you all like, do you consent with everything that's going on, or are you just burned out from all the things going on in your life and you're just kind of like, okay, fine, I think I love you, and that's sort of like the last resort or something like this.
Well, so it's even so, as I said, I have not read the book, but I was reading up on the book. I would like to find the book and truly read it, but from the way that it's described in the Sondheim biography and then some other sources that I found in the book, Fosca is pretty awful, like as a human being. And the feelings that Giorgio has for her in the end are very complicated and very toxic. And the fact that she sort of has like infected him more than he's become in love with her. And when he has sex with Fosca, it's so like the major change they make in the musical is that he breaks it off with Clara. She writes him a letter that says, I can't be with you the way you want me to right now. Let's keep doing what we're doing. And when my son, as you said, when my son's older, like, I will run off with you, but I can't lose my son right now. And he's like, enough of this. No, I reject this. In the book, apparently Clara's the one who breaks up with him. And very much, and it blindsides him. And so he basically runs to Fosca, and while he has sex with her, he has all these thoughts of Clara in his head. So it's a very, like, it's a complicated, like, he's angry at Clara, but he's still in love with Clara. And he hates the fact that, like, he's with Fosca right now because he's still not really attracted to her, but she's who's there, and she like has infiltrated his mind. And when she dies and the duel happens, the story in the novel apparently ends with him basically like being a shell of his former self. Whereas in the musical, it's more that he's kind of just depleted and burnt, and as you said, burnt out. And I think that one of the issues I have with the musical is that they don't change any of the story really, but they try to change the attitude of the story. And while the music is often really beautiful, and as I said, the finale always just gets to me now. Like every time I've now listened to it, it just hits me. When I still don't totally buy the last 30 minutes of the show, because they are trying to pitch that Giorgio has truly fallen for Fosca in this really pure and deep way. And it doesn't really click for me. And maybe if I saw a different production with two really exceptional actors, I would buy it. I still don't totally.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about, again, the idea of possession and something like that. This is definitely a very possessive behavior that Fosca was portraying, and again, just I feel like he just succumbed to it, and whether that is just sort of depleted and burnt out versus just like, okay, I'm having sex with you, I'm not thinking about you, sort of thing. I can definitely see why it is controversial, and if some people have really feelings very against this one, because it's not the kind of making the connection with the very first scene. It's almost like, oh, this love's very like passionate. You're talking about it being very warm and being sort of an exemplar of what love looks like, and then towards the end it's like, okay, I understand that, but this is also not what it should be look like, what it should be like. So
yeah. The way that I originally described passion, so when I was talking about all the romanticism that isn't always there in a Sondheim musical, or at least what I should say is unadulterated romanticism, because I do think he does write love songs, but it's not usually like a I love you and you love me. It's an I love you and you're nowhere to be found, or you love me and I can't take it. And passion, I used to say on the series, was an you love me and I want you to get away from me show. But now that and I think that's something that's sort of part of it. But then towards the end, it's like, I love you and I'm dying. Like it's not a like, I love you and isn't it wonderful? It's like I love you and I'm about to fall apart. It's very poisonous in a weird way. It thinks of it as an obsession and as a fever to be had. Which
the
is
vulnerability that was, I think, the key. It really shows that vulnerability. I mean, when I think in any love song, it's just any feelings of love is, you do want to portray that vulnerability. You're giving a part of yourself up so that you can be loved by somebody else, or you can love somebody else. There's always going to be risk, when you love somebody. But I think in this case, it's just very, the vulnerability was sort of like the main feature of that delivery.
Well, that's sort of Fosca's main playing card, is like, what you have with me is that I'm 100% honest with you and I'm willing to give all of myself to you. She even has that line, she's like, would Clara give her life for you? I would gladly.
That's right. Yeah.
Which, is not the most woke of statements, but it is a very honest statement. It's Fosca's truth. And who are we to necessarily judge her truth? But, I think that the show does a much better job of dramatizing how obsession can lead to feelings, or like how persistence can start to lead to obsession, because there's a musical device that they use where the regiment sings Fosca's lyrics throughout scene transitions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can hear it on most of the cast recordings. You definitely see it in the film. Although I think in the original production, I don't think they don't stage it in the way that I think they should, which is that I feel like what it's supposed to show when they sing her lyrics again, because it happens every time she sings, a different lyric. So she sings I Read, they have their scene, she collapses, and then the regiment, sings a little bit about the town, which is her lyrics about the town. And then after the castle, they sing, they hear drums, we hear music, be my friend. And they do it throughout the show. And what I feel like it's supposed to represent is how Fosca is weirdly getting in Giorgio's head. And for all the times that he says he's repulsed by her and he just wants to be with Clara, her words are finding a way in there and sticking in there.
Yeah.
And that is sort of what plants the seed to, that eventually grows into him becoming obsessive about her. And Clara even says, like, you've changed. You only talk about this woman. I hate her and I've never even met her because she's all you talk about. You're cutting your sick leave off early to be with her. And I don't know if any productions have really emphasized that when every time the regiment sings Fosca's lyrics, because I feel like it should show the audience that despite what Giorgio's saying, he is thinking about Fosca.
All the time I watched from my room, thinking we'd meet, thinking you'd look at me, thinking you'd be repelled by what you saw. Don't reject me, don't deny me, understand me.
It's almost like she knew all along that it will happen. She just needs to plant the seed very carefully and take her time until he gets to that point, which then unfortunately she dies.
Yeah.
But at least they got to, get together for
There's a
one
song that Diana Ross and the Supremes used to sing. It's a big famous song. It's called I'm Gonna Make You Love Me. And basically, that I'm gonna make you love me.
Oh, I think I've heard it before. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like Sondheim heard that song and he said, but what if I made that a horror movie? And that's Passion. Because it's a really weird statement in general. It's supposed to be like a cute little thing of like, just you wait, like, I'm gonna get you. Like, you don't think you're gonna love me, like, I'm gonna make it happen. Yeah. And you were bringing up about consent earlier. It's, sometimes no means no. And this shows a weird situation where it's like he does kind of just get worn down and constantly chased after, and because of circumstances and who he is, and he is a sensitive person. We established this early in the show when he's sending letters home to Clara. He's like, I hate it here. The guys here are all meatheads. And like, I cried on the train when I left you, and I read, and Fosca's like, I realize that you're a sensitive soul. I am too. But I don't know. It all feels a little calculated on her part in a way, where it's because she talked about like, I saw you when you arrived, and she's like, maybe it was because the way you spoke to everyone that made me like fall for you. And I think that's bullshit. She fell for him because he's handsome. Even the men in the barracks agree. They're like, he's a very handsome man. And Fosca is attracted to him first and foremost. So and it feels very hypocritical when she's like, you can't get past my looks. And it's sort of like, you're kind of only obsessed with him because of his looks. And then he said, and then like he shows you an ounce of kindness, and all of a sudden it's like sinking your hooks in, and it's like, don't you worry, boy, I am going to wear you the fuck down. I'd be very interested to hear opinions on this show that are much more complimentary of Fosca, because I don't dislike her as a character. I don't even totally dislike her as a human being. As I said, there's a lot about her that I admire. Like her brutal honesty, fucking love it.
Yeah.
I laugh every time where she's like, give to others. It just truly makes me giggle. But yeah, so you're saying?
I was going to say two things that came to my mind is that one note that I think is worth mentioning is also the fact that other things going on in Giorgio's world wasn't going very well either, and that's probably I feel like that's probably one of the reasons why the conditioning was that successful. It's because you're talking about in the station, in the military station, about he was not happy with the people that he worked with, and there was really and then also the whole thing we're going with Clara and not being able to see her and everything, and that sort of puts Giorgio in this sort of weird state, and that again, the key vulnerability was what I think contribute to and how this whole thing happened, is that he was sort of in a place where he wasn't feeling great about what he was doing, with his job and being so far away from the person that he loved. So in this vulnerable moment, Fosca was able to sort of penetrate her way into his mind. So I think that was. Oh, also you're talking about honesty, the brutal honesty that Fosca had. I mean, thinking about it, I feel like it's kind of it pretty much makes sense how she pretty much had nothing else to lose. I mean, I think it's safe to say that she was at the very low point, in her life, with just like the count, being gone and being very poor and no parents, to support, and just living with the colonel,
and a bunch of other men who
exactly,
who can't stand her.
So I think, it's like if I see myself living in that sort of situation, it's like I'm not holding back, like I'll just say what I think, and I don't have to worry about losing anything because I already did. So
yeah, I have lost it all. That is something that is an interesting counterpoint with her and Clara. Is like Clara is too busy wondering what everyone else will think of her. Like being with Giorgio is the most scandalous thing she's ever done, but it is all very secretive, and there's so little she's willing to give up to do it. It is what makes her happy, but I don't think Clara's life is all that bad. She has a child she loves. She's clearly got money. She keeps showing up in beautiful outfits and can pay for this second apartment for her and Giorgio to fuck in. And it doesn't seem like her husband's awful to her. I think she just doesn't love her husband, at least from the little that we know. And so because she has so much to lose, there's so little she's willing to give. And Fosca's like, I literally have nothing.
Right.
I will just give my all. And they even say it when she's like, I know it's improper for me to like say what I feel, but fuck it. And in some ways Fosca is goals, and in some ways we need to only pick apart some of the things that Fosca does and take it with us, not all of it.
And again, I think it's just sort of confirms the message that I mean, a lot of times when you think about love stories, something like that, there's always like this character who is like the perfect, like the princess or the prince that has everything, and it's basically has the best qualities, the best look, best personality, and in this story it's more human. And I think I really like that. It's all of us, I mean, definitely not to the extent that Fosca was, but no one is perfect, and I mean, hopefully I'm against, cheating on, your partner or something like that. Sure. But at the same time, like you were saying about Fosca being very honest, I don't know. That's just what I had in my mind.
I love it.
Sorry, I was just sort of thinking about something else.
Let's talk about the other big song in the show, Loving You.
Okay.
Yes. So as I said, this was a song that was added, I believe, during previews, and it's when Giorgio is sick and he's been ordered to go to Milan for 40 days to sort of get the sickness out of his system. And he's on the train getting ready to leave, and he's like so over Fosca because she's gotten him sick. And lo and behold, she shows up on the train with a suitcase because of course she does. And basically he's like, leave me alone. And she was like, no, I don't like that you're sick. I want to make sure you're okay. I'm going to sort of go to Milan. I'm going to sort of keep tabs on you. And he's like, this isn't going to make me love you. She's like, this isn't about you. She's like, I love you. And because I love you, I am going to make sure that you're okay. I'm not doing it to make you love me. Or that's what she says anyway. Sometimes that's, it's like, whatever you do, don't go in this room. Like sometimes you could say it feels a little bit like that, but this is actually the one scene where I'm like, Fosca is very honest and very, I actually think very on the nose about love, which is like sacrificing parts of yourself for others. And it's not about always getting something in return. It's just about doing something for the person you care for, and watching over them. And when I don't remember the exact dialogue, but he says essentially like, basically like, stop loving me. And then she sings Loving You, which is, the first lyric is like, loving you is not a choice, it's who I am. And it doesn't give me a reason to rejoice. I like that lyric a lot, where she's like, it does, but it gives me purpose. She's like, this isn't something that makes me happy. I'm not thrilled that I'm in love with you, but it gives me a reason. And she's like, and that's something that is important, because before this, I had no reason.
Right.
Which explains also why it has so become all encompassing with her, because if this is her only thing to hold on to, like toxic or not, she's gonna hold on to it for fucking dear life.
Loving you is not a choice, it's who I am. Loving you is not a choice, and not much reason to rejoice, but it gives me purpose, gives me voice to say to the world, this is why I live.
You know what reminds me of? I think we had this conversation a long time ago. And Sunset Boulevard, Andrew Lloyd Webber. Patti LuPone was in this. She was doing the With One Look, and there's another song of hers in that play. But this reminds me of that, the style, the sort of the sweeping strings arrangement, just the orchestral arrangement of it. I definitely, I would give it another listen, but it's just it's very moving, and the ethereal, as you put it, the ethereal vocal that is in the song. Is, I think, what sort of creates the dreamy feeling, it's almost like a fantasy, the fact that not everyone has the ability to be that vulnerable and to open up that much to feeling love, so it's very what do you call it? It's been a long week.
So when talking about the lyrics, there is no real wit in these lyrics. There's no humor, no hyper intelligence. It's all just very plain spoken, because it is very honest, and she's not trying to wax poetic on it. She's just, this is it. You asked me why, this is it. And she's not trying to present it as anything it's not, or something that would be more palatable to him, which is, I think, very important. I don't get Sunset Boulevard vibes from this, but that's because for me, Sunset Boulevard is a little more bombastic in music.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking specifically about the song. If you've heard the With One Look from that one.
Look, yeah, but even that, I think maybe because With One Look, the melody line does kind of float a little bit, but it is a bigger song.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't give the same charm, but I think in terms of that melody line, and then the energy that comes with it, I felt for some reason it just reminded me of that song. So hopefully that's okay.
No judgment whatsoever. People on this pod know my thoughts on Sunset Boulevard already, but I don't have any major opinions on people's opinions necessarily. just I disagree. That's all. So I want to kind of close out talking of the musical with our finale, which is when Giorgio is, wherever he's at, sanitarium, I believe.
Sanitarium is like sanitary. That doesn't make sense.
Is that not what you call it?
Sanatorium, SANATO.
That's what it is, sanatorium? Like a madhouse? Is that where he's at? Or is he at a hospital?
Well, I think back then it's sort of both, right? Same thing?
I guess. Well, one is for people who are sick and injured, and one is, for people that they can't identify.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's not sanitarium, because it sounds like sanitary. And I'm like, what? Do you just clean crazy people?
They clean out their brains. I don't know. I don't know.
We don't live in that time period.
No,
so
I never said I was from 1800s Italy. I never said I was smart. I simply said I was pretty and that I have a clavicle like Fosca's. There's a difference. Nur.
Fine.
God
okay, you got me.
Jeez.
Oh my God.
You bring a friend onto a podcast and he starts dragging you through the mud immediately? Oh my God. Okay. So we get to this finale, and Giorgio is told Fosca's dead. The duel didn't result in any casualties, and he sent a box of things of Fosca's in addition to a letter that she wrote to him while she was close to death. And what's interesting is that the letter, as I was listening to her section of the letter, where she's talking about how once they had sex, everything kind of shifted in perspective for her, and all the toxic attitudes that she had and the sort of anger and vitriol that she had and that she acted with disappeared, because it all came from the root of the fact that she had spent so much of her life feeling like she was unlovable, not unworthy of love. She always felt she was worthy of love, but that she was unlovable. And knowing that she had love and that she was worthy of love changed everything for her. And everything, and she says in the lyrics, like, you're everywhere I look, everything looks different, everything has purpose, and everything is right now. And it almost sounds too pat, like it's like a little too wrapped up, but it makes sense in a lot of ways, because love is what led her to being the shell of the human that she once was. But then love is also what kind of saved her right before the end. It all connects back to this one thing. And if it sounds sort of simplistic, it kind of is, but that's also sort of at the core of Fosca. She's this hyper intelligent and talented woman, and her only real desire is to be loved. And so for it to finally happen with the man that she supposedly loves changes everything for her. And so it's nice to read in that letter that at the end of her life, she had this reprieve that I really appreciate. And then they quote the letter that she made Giorgio write to her, but the lyrics actually are true now. And this is the moment where, like, I break down. It's when the entire ensemble comes in and they start to sing that I don't know how I've left you so far inside my mind. And the harmony they go into, and then it goes right into Fosca saying, and should you die tomorrow, another thing I see. It's so beautiful to the point that, like, it defies any logic or reason. Like, you could hate the show up until then, and many people have, and I'll get into a thing about that in a second. Many people have hated the show, but that ending, music, at least on a purely musical level, affects you in a little bit.
Inside my mind, but there you are and there you will stay. How could I ever wish you away? I see now I was blind.
And should you die tomorrow, another thing I see.
Your love will live in me.
Your love will live in me.
Your love will live in me.
It sort of shows the humor in her, where she's like, isn't it ironic, as I'm ending my life, now I want to see more of it. She has another line like that where she talks about early on that there's a castle, ruins of a castle somewhere in town, and she wants to show it to Giorgio, and she was like, I really love it, probably because it's ruined. And
that's right.
I mean, again, Donna Murphy does not play it for laughs, but I think it's a funny line and should get a laugh. It also would help the audience be more on Fosca's side. Again, not making her likable, because she does a lot of unlikable things, but you need the audience on a theatrical level to have a reason to continue to watch a character.
Of course,
and if you give them even like a snippet of something that they can connect to, they will latch on for a lot longer. And if you really just are like, no, I want them to watch someone who's just awful from start to finish, then they're going to resent you, and they're going to boo when your character doesn't die, and they're going to laugh when she's trying to seduce someone.
Yeah.
Sondheim was like, I think it's because, she wasn't conventionally beautiful. We tried to make her super grotesque and ugly, and they were like so guffawed that she would have the audacity to go after such a stunning man and have him fall in love with her. I'm like, that's not really it, Steve. It's because you just made her so unlikable. They didn't have a reason to want to watch her.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. There's one, Stephen Sondheim said something about sort of, I don't know what he said. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just blank right now. But he was saying something about the character, something about not I'm sorry, I just thought about something else.
Think, baby. Think.
It
That's
was
Two
from the
Gentlemen.
interview with who is it? And then at the end, and it's like the second half, Lapine joined
Lapine.
Lapine.
Oh, it was
Lapine
on
joined him.
Charlie Rose, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this sort of part when he was talking about the just so unlikable, and how can you be so sure that Giorgio will fall in love with this character at the end. I can't remember exactly. It's blank mind. Sorry.
Well, I'm so glad you brought it up since you can't follow up on it. Wow, you're a wonderful guest to have.
Oh my god!
I don't
this is
regret this one bit. Yeah, no, it's
just edit the whole thing, my part, the whole thing out of the show.
I'm editing you out of this entire thing. It's just me. Yeah, no,
I'll sing something with that redeemer.
Yeah, sure. I already sang a little bit. I should say all and it's mostly in terms of like the original presentation of Fosca that I really kind of object to. I've watched some other interpretations online, Judy Kuhn, a little bit of Natasha Diaz. I've listened to some of Maria Friedman, who you listen to. She's the London Fosca.
Oh yeah.
And these are other Foscas that have humanity and humor to them, which I think helps the audience connect with her a bit more. So even if they don't always necessarily like her or don't necessarily root for her, they can at least understand her a bit more, which is important. You don't have to have your character likable, you just have to understand them a bit better. Yeah, I don't know, I have nothing left to say on this finale other than it just kicks me right in the gut. And because I've just started warming to Passion, I don't want to say it's my favorite of the Sondheim finales, but it's close. It's getting up there.
Yeah.
It ends very quietly, which is very brave of them. And I talked earlier about how Sondheim wanted to sort of bookend the show with 2 separate orgasms. He doesn't quite do that because this finale is not where the orgasm is. Fosca's orgasm happens like 5 minutes before the finale.
Right.
Yeah. It's, Giorgio takes her to bed after singing "No One Has Loved Me as You Love Me." And then he has the duel, and then there's the finale. So he gets close to it, but yes, there is a parallel there. And what's interesting is when he tells her that he loves her, and she starts to kind of cry and shiver. He's like, "What's wrong?" She goes, "I'm afraid." He goes, "Of what?" And then she starts to sing "All This Happiness." When there is so little time. And it's interesting how they take the same song and it's about a moment that's much more true, and yet it seems so much darker. But I guess that's sort of Passion for you. They're like, "Oh, you want to be in love, honey? Fantastic. Get ready to suffer."
It is honestly, though, in all seriousness, that is actually very true. Is that, again, what I said earlier, like if you loving somebody, whether things go right or wrong, it is the vulnerability. It is opening yourself up to what potentially can hurt you. And, and that's why it is risky. It could be dangerous, So I think, again, this show really gives me that. It's a strange yet very familiar feeling about loving somebody, and the vulnerability and the risk that comes with it. So
yeah, it reminds me of, and we're gonna wrap this up now. It reminds me of this couple that I knew in college that have since been married. Or they got married, and they are still married, I should say. But when when we were in college, I remember my friend Sarah. Have you met Sarah? You never met Sarah.
I don't think so, no.
My friend Sarah and I were talking to one of these guys in the couple, and we're asking sort of about their relationship. And he said, every time we have a fight, I can't go to bed that night until we've resolved it. He's like, it feels cathartic in the moment to like argue with him, and then like we'll walk away and I'll like go to my room. He's like, and I literally lie in bed unable to sleep, tossing and turning, like my stomach hurts, and I have to like call him up so we can resolve it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a connection, you know.
That is also, yeah, a rule I imposed to myself as well. It's like, can't go to bed feeling, resentful or having any grudge, holding any grudge. Like that's not a good night's sleep. That.
I don't know what you're talking about. I hold grudges all the time, and my skin has never looked better. Any final thoughts on Passion before we go to the legacy and wrap things up?
I finally remember what from that interview, with Sondheim being like, you can't really control what the audience will think or will like or dislike, but you can make that very clear. You can be clear with your intentions of what you do in the play, and I think that's what's sort of important, is that it is very clear that like you said, she was unlovable, but at the same time there are things that we can relate to her, and I think that's what made the play happen. That's what made it successful, is that, okay, yeah, there's this awful person who was manipulating her ways into getting this affection and love from this male character, but we can relate. And I think Sondheim and his team was very clear about what they wanted to get out of that and what the audience feels. So
yeah.
That was a weird audition, sorry.
So Passion, as I said, opens in May 9th of 1994, and its reviews are actually pretty solid. They're all mostly strong, if not all effusive praise. It's a lot of, this is the most emotion in a Sondheim musical. Oh my God, this is so romantic. But they all are like, there are things that are still wrong with it. And they all have different reasons for what's wrong. Some of them go, the love story doesn't really work, or they say it's a little too over dramatic, or they have problems with casting. No review is ever like, oh yes, this is the one, it's clicked, it's all good now. They all are like, there's a lot here to love, and there's a lot that is bumpy. But because of the season that it's in, they're like, we will absolutely take it, because this is the season where it's up against Beauty and the Beast, Cyrano the Musical, and A Grand Night for Singing for Best Musical, and only up against Beauty and the Beast and Cyrano for Best Score. Can you guess if it wins either of those Tony Awards? Musical and score. Beauty and the Beast and Cyrano the Musical.
I think it did. I mean, it had to.
It did. It won both of those things. It won musical, score, book, and lead actress for Donna Murphy, who played Fosca. It closed, I think, in January, making it the shortest run for a Best Musical winner. But yeah, which is, honestly, it ran for almost 300 performances, which for a show like this in 1994 makes sense. Yeah, that was a year where more the revivals were dominating, but that is for another day. It so as I said, wins Best Musical. It goes on to open in the West End in 1996, where it runs about the same amount of time, about 6 months more or less. It is nominated for Best Musical at the Olivier's, but doesn't win. Loses to Martin Guerre, which is like, okay. Maria Friedman does win for playing Fosca. Basically, Passion is not really done again in New York until there's the concert with Patti LuPone and Audra McDonald that I sent you. And it's done at the Kennedy Center as part of a Sondheim festival. And then it's done for real at the Classic Stage Company in 2013 with one Miss Judy Kuhn. It's also done in London a few years ago at the Donmar Warehouse, which is the production that Sondheim thinks is pretty definitive. He loved the Donmar production. He thought that it the show just like clicked with that one.
Nice.
And he says that the actor who played Giorgio, David Thaxton, was like the reason for it. That production made it Giorgio's story, not Fosca's story, which is, I think, important. It's hard to necessarily say what the legacy is with this show, because it is not the most produced of Sondheim shows. I wouldn't even say it's like in the middle area of produced Sondheim shows. Like, this is not a Follies or a Company or a Sweeney. It's done. People do it, but it's rare, and it's very, as I said, it's still very divisive. There are only really 2 songs that people ever sing from it. One is Loving You. The other one is I Wish I Could Forget You. Fun fact, my grandmother, who you've met, Nancy, Yes, she saw this in 1994. My grandmother used to work for Lincoln Center. She was part of, she did a lot of PR for them. But it also required her to see a lot of theater. And my family likes theater anyway, so they just go see stuff. So she saw this in 94 and she hated it so much. Like the most. She hated it so much to the point that anyone who was in that show, it was like 15 years until she finally was able to like let it go. So like Donna Murphy, Nanny did not like Donna Murphy until very recently. And she'll say, oh, well, I just don't care for her as an actress. I'm like, no, Nanny, you just hated Passion. There are other things that she's been good in, you know. And she wouldn't like Maren Maisie for the longest time. I forget. We finally saw something with Maren Maisie where she finally was like, you know what? This is the first time I've liked her. And I'm like, it's been 13 years since Passion. Fucking let it up.
Wow.
But like Fosca with Love and Giorgio, there's no rhyme or reason. It just really emotionally negatively affected my grandmother. She just so intensely hated it.
Oof.
That there was no logical reason behind why she felt the way she felt for so many years.
I definitely felt like, you know, it can be I said this word earlier, like controversial because, you know, especially back then, it's, I don't know how big Passione d'Amore was, but this being as public and as on your face, I think, because it's on Broadway, you know, definitely affected that. So
yeah, once something goes to Broadway, the expectation changes a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say in terms of Broadway, I think the biggest legacy that this kind of leaves behind it is it opens the door for more operatic works to come back and for chamber musicals to come back, because when Passion comes in, it's sort of coming off the tail end of the mega musicals like Les Mis and Phantom, which are, you know, sung through, but I wouldn't necessarily say are chamber opera like musicals. It doesn't really go down that road. It's more poppy. This allows works like Land of the Piazza to come through and Great Comet to come through. There's a lot of good to be had from Passion, and I think it's one of those Sondheim shows that always will just spark a debate about the music, about the characters, about the story, how successful you think it is, how unsuccessful you think it is. Yeah, I'd like to see a production of it, which leads us to our rapid fire questions, Nur.
Okay,
are you ready?
I think so. We'll see.
First up, the Sondheim rhyme. What is your favorite lyric in this show?
I read to live in other people's lives, read about the joys, the world, the dispenses to the fortunate, and listen for the echoes. Just very like contemplative. I don't know, just very imaginative, I felt like. And that's what I do too. I do that with music. You know, I would like listen to a piece of music and just like, what was this composer thinking when he was writing this? And I feel like I want to get into that space sometime.
You know what mine is?
What?
It's not a lyric, it's a line. Give to others.
That sounds like you. I think I'm really not surprised.
Fuck you. So next up, I Had a Dream cast. Who would you most like to see in a production of this? Any singers that are like, I would just love to hear them sing this score? The opera people.
It doesn't. Does it need to be or does it not?
Doesn't need to be, no, but I know that you probably know more of them than you would have a lot of Broadway singers.
Okay. Maybe I can talk about it afterwards. But I recently got really interested in Renee Elise Goldsberry. So I don't know. That'll be interesting to hear her doing this. I don't know.
As who? Fosca? I mean, she's a stunning woman, but yeah, let's ugly her up a bit.
I don't know. There was this do you know the show documentary now on Netflix?
Yes, where they do the company parody, the co-op.
I just saw that like yesterday, and so that's why that's like, oh, I want to listen to her doing stuff from Passion. That'll be interesting. So that's why this happened.
That is how you know Renee Elise Goldsberry is from co-op?
No. I was just thinking about
sure
her because I just saw that like yesterday.
Yes.
So.
And she sings My Home Court. Yes.
Yes.
And the brown and the beige.
The beige and the brown. Yeah.
So good. Yeah. Okay. I'll take that. I'm sure she will too.
Well, Audra McDonald did Fosca.
No, she did. She played Clara.
I'm sorry, but Patti LuPone. I mean, I don't think Patti LuPone was hideous. So
they first, one of the major problems with Passion. I don't say major problems. I would say one of the major obstacles a lot of productions of Passion have is how far they're willing to go to make Fosca unappealing physically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they cast these women who are just such stunning women, like Donna Murphy and Judy Kuhn, and Patti LuPone is a beautiful woman, and they basically they pale them up a bit and then pull their hair back. They give them very pale foundation and pull their hair back, and then they're like, see, look at her, not very pretty, right? And I'm like, like, you should look at the actress who plays Fosca in the Italian film. They mess up her teeth a lot more. They give her more sallow skin. They kind of put some craters in her face. They make her hair more stringy. They don't hold back. Next question is, God, that's good. Of the Sondheim shows you now know, where would you rank Passion personally for you?
Ooh, okay. Because I'm probably the most familiar with Into the Woods, so I think that would still be number one, especially the storyline. I really do like sort of the variety that Into the Woods has music-wise. So I think that would number one. Passion would be number two.
Okay.
I would say, I'm not as familiar with Sweeney Todd, but I think if I was familiar with Sweeney Todd, I think that would change my mind.
Well, we'll just have to get you familiar to Sweeney Todd. But as it is right now, so right now we have of the shows it's Woods, Passion, and Company. Would those be the three?
Company would be number three. Yeah, that's right. I'm not as familiar with Roadshow and Sunday in the Park with George, especially since I know like one or two numbers from those musicals. So Sweeney Todd would be number four, I feel like, and then the rest would just be like after.
The more. We're gonna.
That's probably the most embarrassing thing I've ever said.
No, it's your personal opinion. When we need to circle back to you at some point, Nor, as you get more familiar with Sweeney and Sunday in the Park and Follies, and you don't need to be that familiar with Roadshow, but maybe Roadshow if you're interested, and then tell me where Passion ranks, if it stays, if it goes up, if it goes down. Be very interested to hear. Final question. This one's a little tweaked for you because you're my music man. This one is called It's the Little Things, aka There Won't Be Trumpets. And it's asking you, Mr. Nur, how would you orchestrate this score to as few instruments as possible, but it still gives you what you want from this score?
Okay. The first one came to my mind just thinking about a string quartet or maybe a quintet would be really cool for this, especially with the very romantic, again, I mentioned earlier, like the sort of the Richard Strauss, romantic composer period. I feel like a string quartet would be a really good reduction of this. But then the problem that I ran into was the whole military thing, the drum and the trumpet and stuff. And it's just like, it's hard to recreate that with strings ensembles. So I came to sort of like a 10 to 12 piece orchestra in my mind. That the list I have will still keep a couple of the woodwinds. So the flute, the clarinet, we'll keep the trumpet and the horn because again, it's in the military. So I just have to. The percussion. He just
rolled his eyes so hard when he said that.
The percussion, the drum and stuff like that. And then the piano can definitely fill in for like the harp and the celeste and the harpsichord, and then the violin, viola, cello, and bass. So so that's tiny. I was reading something about, I think when they first did the preview of Passion, they only had the budget for like a 15-piece orchestra instead of what was that, like I think it's 20 or 25. So I think at that time it was very limited, but I'm like pushing it down even more still.
Yeah. I'm sure there have been productions that have done even fewer than 15, but
Yeah.
in a time when, orchestras were still 20 plus and most Sondheim scores, with the exception of, I think, Sunday and Woods, most Sondheim scores were a 20 plus orchestra. This is definitely a smaller sound, but the difference between this and like Into the Woods is that the sound for Into the Woods doesn't sound as lush as it does for Passion. So it's really fascinating that such a small orchestra can have such a big sound.
Of course, yeah. It really depends on how it's orchestrated and what effects you're trying. But again, it's just I kept thinking about like, okay, even something as a string quartet or quintet would do a great job. But you got the bugle calls that is like, okay, well, I don't want to have a violin play bugle call because that doesn't make sense. So
well,
trumpet it is.
Maybe I'll direct a production where it makes sense to have a violin do the trumpet. I'll make it work. I'll make it work for us. Because as you said, with Passion, without your string section, you ain't shit. So we got to have that string section.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, that's what makes, an orchestra as amazing as it is. It's the string section. It's just so versatile and again, Passion, and I'm so excited for you to show the audience, the music from it, especially for those who haven't heard it, because it is amazing. There's
a lot of beauty in this score. Some weird moments as well, but a lot of beauty. Nur, this has been delightful. Thank you so much for taking time out of your midterm week to talk with me about shows.
Of course, yeah, it's been really fun. I mean, I get to catch up with you and I haven't seen you in like almost a year, right? I mean,
I
went to visit
last
summer. Right, yeah. That's right. And it's almost, spring. So we're just one season away from 1 year anniversary. It's the last time I saw you. So
well, hopefully I get to see you again soon.
This summer I should be, making my way back there. I don't know what happens with Berkeley in the fall, but I know that I'll be there sometime this year, and I plan to drive. So I'll drive by the New York City, and I'll meet you there. So that'll be fun.
That makes me happy. My mom is going to be thrilled.
Yeah. Well, let me know what I can bring from LA for you and your mom. So I would love to.
Can you bring us some New York bagels? Because according to the New York Times, LA has better bagels than we do.
Oh, I read about that. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. I'll do that.
I read that and I was like, you must be joking. Anyway, Nur, where can people find you online if you would like them to find you?
So people can certainly reach me through Instagram. It's probably the most active so far. I'm happy to provide my Instagram name probably in the bio or in some. It's my name is Nur_Fahlevi _Pratama, and I post some music and stuff, the updates that I've been up to on there. So that's the best way, I think.
Absolutely. Very worthwhile. If you enjoyed his dulcet tones, you'll enjoy his dulcet music. You can find me on Instagram at Matt Koplik, usual spelling. If you like the podcast, guys, rate, review, subscribe. Algorithms, we gotta keep bending over for them, and we like it just a little bit. Make sure to check us out next week when we get to the Sondheim musical that took 50 years to get here, Saturday night. And we'll see how that turns out. In the meanwhile, have a great week, everybody. And let's think, who would be a good diva that's connected to Passion that we can close out on? You know what? Let's go for broke. The London cast, we're going to do Miss Maria Friedman, our London Fosca. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Take us away, Miss Maria. Bye.
Bye.
Jenny and her saga, prove that you are gaga if you don't